Some interviews seem to vanish from memory, as if history itself erases them. Documents are lost, witnesses fall silent, and those who do recall often choose not to speak, especially when the line between science and the supernatural begins to blur. The name Stephen Hawking is universally recognized. A towering physicist, a profound thinker, a man who overcame not only the constraints of his body, but also pushed the boundaries of what humanity could understand. He spoke of black holes, the origin of the universe, and the essence of time. Yet there was one subject he almost always avoided in public life: after death. But in the spring of 2025, a team of researchers combing through the sealed digital archives of Cambridge University stumbled upon a mysterious audio file buried within restricted materials. The file bore a random string of letters and numbers, but the metadata revealed a peculiar title: Hawking, Consciousness Beyond. Initial suspicions suggested it was a hoax or manipulated audio. However, advanced voice analysis confirmed the voice belonged unmistakably to Stephen Hawking himself. What was even more surprising, the recording dated back to the early 2000s, a time when Hawking had largely withdrawn from public interviews. The file captured a private conversation between him and an unidentified interviewer. The speaker's voice was distorted, processed, and untraceable. The first 10 minutes contained standard discussions on physics, time, gravity, entropy. But then came a question that shifted the entire tone. "Professor," the voice asked, "if information inside a black hole is never truly lost, could it be possible that consciousness also persists beyond the death of the body?" A long pause followed. Hawking's mechanical voice barely whispered a response. "This is a question I've studied more deeply than I've ever admitted publicly." What followed was a monologue that for decades, official science would never dare publish. Hawking explained that if information is truly indestructible, this must apply not only to matter, but to cognitive patterns, memory, perception, experience. What religions describe as a soul might not be a separate entity, but instead a structured form of information. This structure obeys the laws of conservation, he stated. The interviewer pressed further. "So you're saying consciousness can continue to exist?" Hawking answered firmly. "In a certain form, yes, but not in the way religions traditionally portray it." He described his hypothesis that consciousness is not strictly a localized process of the brain, but a form of quantum information spread across space and time. When the body stops functioning, this information doesn't vanish. It changes state. In this view, death is not an ending, but a transformation. These ideas directly contradicted many of Hawking's public statements, where he had often claimed there was nothing after death. But this private recording suggested he had explored another possibility, one far more profound. And then came the strangest discovery. Upon further analysis of the file, researchers detected faint digital anomalies, subtle patterns resembling encrypted signals or hidden code. Audio forensic experts proposed the file may have been intentionally altered or partially shielded, as if some segments were being concealed. Still, the essential parts remained intact. In the recording, Hawking continued, "In recent years, I worked with a group of physicists and neurobiologists on a project we called the Cognitive Trace Program. Its aim was simple: to determine whether consciousness leaves measurable traces after the brain shuts down." He mentioned using neurointerfaces and laser spectroscopy tools officially deployed in memory studies. But Hawking revealed that several experiments produced baffling results. In 2 documented cases, he said, "We observed sudden bursts of quantum activity in the lab following clinical death anomalies our existing models couldn't explain." The interviewer asked, "Are you referring to a quantum echo?" "Yes," Hawking replied. "Memories, emotions, perhaps even fragments of personality persisting. Not in the conventional sense, but as patterns capable of interacting with the environment." The theory echoed Roger Penrose's ideas about quantum consciousness, but Hawking pushed it further. He suggested a bold parallel that black holes and human consciousness might operate under similar laws. A black hole doesn't erase information, It transforms it. I concluded that consciousness follows the same principle. It doesn't cease to exist. It changes its form. A long silence followed. Then the interviewer asked in a hushed voice, "Is that what the soul is?" Hawking's response came in a near whisper. "If you strip away the religious framework, yes, it is an informational soul. It doesn't belong only to the body. It is part of quantum reality." At that point, the audio began to break up static distortion, as though someone were trying to interfere. Using spectral tools, the research team recovered portions of the corrupted data. In the final minutes of the recording, Hawking warned that these ideas were too volatile for public release. "If consciousness can leave a trace after death," he said, "then everything changes. Science, philosophy, religion, power structures, some would use it for good, others for control. That's why I chose not to publish the findings. Perhaps humanity isn't ready." The recording ended with a sharp mechanical click, but the mystery didn't stop there. When researchers examined the file's metadata again, they found a line of encoded coordinates. At first, they appeared to be meaningless digits, but when entered into mapping software, they pointed to a facility near Geneva. It was a known experimental base affiliated with CERN. Officially, the lab was used for magnetic testing, but unofficial reports suggested that in the early 2000s, it hosted a private team of researchers led by Dr. Mark Euler, a physicist and former collaborator of Hawking. After months of legal petitions, the research team gained partial access to declassified CERN records. Among them were documents titled Cognitive Echo Project dated 2002 and 2003. One report described this event during experiment number 14. Anomalous quantum radiation was detected at the moment of the subject's clinical death. The radiation persisted for 4 minutes after confirmed cessation of brain and heart function. Another note contained a chilling conclusion. The probability of such a signal occurring spontaneously under lab conditions is less than 1 in a million. The event corresponds to the cognitive trace hypothesis. This suggested Hawking wasn't just theorizing. He and his colleagues had already witnessed something extraordinary possible, evidence of consciousness beyond death. But why was none of this ever made public? The answer was chilling. Dr. Mark Euler disappeared in 2004. No trace was ever found. Soon after, the entire Cognitive Echo team was either reassigned or dismissed. All materials were classified. CERN reports made no further mention of the project after 2003. Then anonymous warnings began arriving. Some members of the modern research team were urged to abandon their investigation. One of the audio specialists quit abruptly and left the country. Still, a few chose to continue. They believed the truth buried in Hawking's message was too important to lose again. As they examined the file further, they discovered one final hidden message embedded deep in the data stream. A line of plain cryptic text: "Consciousness is not a function, it is a path." These words became the key. The researchers realized Hawking hadn't merely left behind a hypothesis, he had left a trail. A quiet signpost pointing to something greater, a journey that consciousness might continue to walk long after the physical body falls silent. One of the leading researchers, Dr. Lewis Harding, an expert in quantum informatics, proposed a bold theory. If consciousness is truly an informational structure, as Stephen Hawking once suggested, then perhaps death is not the end. Instead, it might mark a transition into what he termed a quantum memory field. In this hypothetical state, personality patterns don't simply vanish. They may persist as wave-like structures, potentially interacting with one another. Harding drew on the foundational work of not only Roger Penrose, but also John Wheeler, who theorized that the universe itself might retain memory. If this were true, then consciousness wouldn't just survive, it could reincarnate. With this possibility in mind, Harding's team began searching for correlations between data found in CERN's experimental archives and verified accounts of individuals with inexplicable memories. They turned to the Division of Perceptual Studies at the University of Virginia, which has spent over 50 years collecting reports of children who remember past lives. What they found was striking in 13 documented cases. Children described places, people, and events that had been previously recorded in studies related to a project called Cognitive Echo. The matches were too specific to dismiss. In one case, a 6-year-old boy from Texas recounted detailed procedures involving magnetic traps at a laboratory in Geneva, even though his family had no ties to science or Europe. A girl from California remembered sequences of numbers that perfectly matched experimental codes from the Cognitive Echo archives. Such accuracy could not be brushed off as coincidence. Dr. Harding theorized that if consciousness information truly persists, it may be absorbed by new carriers, children whose neural structures resonate with quantum remnants of previous consciousnesses. This would explain not only spontaneous memories, but also the mysterious phenomenon of so-called returned souls. Yet one question remained: why do some consciousnesses return while others fade away? The answer, Harding believed, lay hidden in long-lost data. In the final portion of an old, damaged audio recording, once thought irretrievable, a short phrase was recovered. Not all patterns are compatible. Only those that carry development continue. The rest are erased. This, Harding concluded, was natural selection at the level of consciousness itself. Hawking, it seemed, wasn't merely acknowledging the soul, he was describing a scientifically governed process of spiritual evolution, a form of informational reincarnation. The team's early findings, once published, ignited fierce debate. Critics from institutions like Cambridge and CERN denounced the research as unverifiable pseudoscience. Many labeled Harding's theory as dangerous conjecture, yet not everyone in the scientific community dismissed it. Professor Karen Blake, a neurophysiologist at Princeton, defended the research. Modern science is often afraid to confront ideas that challenge long-standing dogmas. But if we ignore what doesn't fit our models, we halt our own progress. Amid the controversy, the researchers stumbled upon another lead, a report classified as Level C, the lowest level of secrecy buried in CERN's archives. The 2002 document detailed an experiment involving individuals with unusual cognitive abilities. These weren't just people with high IQs. They had spontaneous recollections of events they could not have experienced. The report described them as carriers of cognitive patterns with signs of memory transfer, with probability of random coincidence less than 1 in a million. But the most startling mention was a phrase, the chosen 8. This echoed Hawking's earlier words: consciousness is a path. Only compatible patterns continue. Harding and his team realized this might refer to individuals whose consciousnesses had not only survived, but had been deliberately guided to fulfill a purpose. As fantastic as it sounded, the evidence kept building. Over the next 2 years, cases of reincarnation memory in children began rising across the globe, particularly in the United States, the UK, Germany, and Japan. These children not only recalled past lives, they displayed advanced abilities in mathematics, music, and engineering. Some spoke of tasks they had to complete, even if they couldn't explain what those tasks were. Harding collaborated once more with the University of Virginia. They discovered that many of these children were born during periods of significant technological or social upheaval. As Hawking had predicted, their return wasn't random, it was evolutionary. This pattern continued. More children with extraordinary memories and talents emerged, particularly those born during times of global transition. They didn't just recall previous lives, they displayed deep innate skills in disciplines no one in their families had ever studied. Some even spoke of missions without fully understanding them. From this, Harding concluded that consciousnesses were returning for a reason. This wasn't random, it was a directed process. Soon, his team began referring to these individuals as compatible consciousnesses. These were soul's information patterns that had survived through some unknown mechanism, retaining abilities and memories in order to fulfill important roles in the present. Then came the most unexpected development. Harding received an anonymous encrypted message. Inside was a single sentence: Hawking knew more than you think. This is not the end. This is the beginning. Attached to the message was a file labeled Protocol of the Evolution of Consciousness. Within it was a document outlining a theory developed by Hawking, alongside a secretive group of physicists, neurobiologists, and philosophers. It read, "Consciousness is not a byproduct of the brain. It is a fundamental structure of reality. Black holes in consciousness obey the same laws of information preservation. The soul is an informational pattern that evolves through the experiences of life and death." It concluded with a powerful statement: "Only consciousnesses that contribute to development endure. The others are erased. In times of crisis, compatible consciousnesses return to guide humanity forward." At the end was Hawking's signature, and this final line: "The fear of death is the fear of losing form. But information does not disappear. We do not die. We transform." These revelations explained much spontaneous memories, unexplainable talents in children, and the timely arrival of individuals who shift the course of history. But they also revealed danger. Such knowledge, if controlled, could become a weapon. Harding's team chose not to hide the truth. They released their findings publicly. The result was a global uproar. Millions began questioning their own memories, déjà vu experiences, and even the nature of their fears. For many, this was no longer just a theory, it was a new way of seeing reality. And as Hawking had said, this was only the beginning. If this story made you reflect, support us with a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more. What lies ahead may forever alter the way we understand life, death, and destiny. After all, the story of the soul is the story of us all. And it continues.